Good afternoon, Facebook. Hope everybody's okay. Hope everybody knows they're loved. Jesus loves you. You'll get through today. Whenever troubles you're going through, I hope they fix for you soon. Just keep your faith in God. Um, Past few days, I've been trying to think of some videos. I don't have the means to go out and explore all day, every day. My car's not in the greatest shape, and I don't really have any extra money to go run around and videotape crazy stuff. But I was thinking this morning, somebody commented on one of my videos earlier saying they wanted to know, like my life story and how I ended up being okay after going to prison and, getting in trouble back in the day. So I thought I'd share a little bit. I was born and raised in Woodstock, Georgia. I'm 38 years old. I was born in February 1987. Greatest years in question to me, the 90s were the best. Honestly, I don't know how I survived the 90s and early 2000s being a dumb little boy. I grew up in the sticks on gravel roads, and, the fun we had was dirt bikes and four-wheelers and building ramps with, a piece of plywood and broken cinder blocks, which, on a downhill grade and on gravel doesn't turn out very well, but somehow, miraculously, we survived, didn't break too many bones. Um, when I was about I'd say about 14. My parents were together from when I was when I was born in 87 till I was about 14 or 15. They had a lot of issues we didn't know about. They were very good at hiding it. Apparently, my mom had an affair with, my dad's best friend, and it broke my dad's heart. My dad just kind of gave up on life after he found all this out, and my mom wanted a divorce, and my dad gave it to her, so they split. Um, didn't really have too much of a plan of where everybody was going to go, who was going to go with who. So um, when everybody moved out of the house we were in, it destroyed me too. It was really hard on me and my younger sisters. I'm the oldest of three. I've got two younger sisters a few years younger than me. Um, my dad ended up moving into a motorhome temporarily in his friend's backyard because he had nowhere else to go. He did have a vehicle, but had nowhere else to really go. So he stayed in a motorhome for a while. We had two dogs. The dogs went with him. My mom and my sisters ended up going to her parents' house, my grandparents' house, and it wasn't fun. I went over there for a few nights, and I was uncomfortable. I didn't like it. But my mom ended up meeting a man at Publix that she worked with for a while, and they ended up hitting it off. And my mom ended up taking my sisters and going and moving into this man's apartment after a while. And I didn't want to be at my grandparents anymore, so I moved in with a friend, which the friend wasn't a real friend. He was a troublemaker. The whole family was trouble. They were all on drugs. I ended up staying with them for a while, and I'll back up for a second. When I was younger, my dad was prescribed to opioid pain medication for his back surgery he had. And I got curious one night and stole a couple of his pills, started taking them, which were methadone pills. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's the most awful thing on the planet. Uh, and I got addicted quick, real quick. I was selling them at school. A friend told me how good they made you feel. I tried them one time. I was hooked. That was when I was about 15, maybe 16. I started doing that. When I moved in with a friend, they were all on meth, and I decided that it'd be cool to get on meth, being young and dumb, didn't know any better. So I ended up staying with them for a while. We ended up breaking into somebody's house like an idiot. Never been in trouble in my life. I was like 17 at the time, almost 18. Got caught. They charged me. I stole a credit card, and when we broke in the house, we stole a bunch of other stuff like an idiot. And I apologized to the people I did this with. I wrote them an apology letter from jail, and they did accept my apology and forgive me for what I did, because it was just awful what I did. You don't ever go into anybody's house. It's got to be the most violating feeling ever to know that some strangers were in your house going through your private stuff, taking your valuables. I can't imagine, and to this day, I'm so sorry I did that to you guys. Ended up getting caught. The other guys pretty much told the cops it was all me, even though they had records a mile long. Somehow I was the only one that ended up getting in trouble for it. So I did 4.5 months in jail. First time I ever been to jail. I was terrified. It was absolutely traumatizing to me because I thought I was going to get out. My bond was $103,000 without a bondsman, which I didn't know much about bonds. I figured that would be like $130 to get out through a bondsman. I had no idea that even a bondsman wouldn't touch me with that amount of a bond. So I sat there for 4.5 months. Finally went to court, got out on 5 years of first offenders felony probation. The first year was supposed to be intense probation. I had a curfew to be home at 6 p.m. every night, no matter what the situation was. When I got out, I was good for a month or two. Stayed with my mom and her boyfriend. They had gotten a new house. Was good for a little while. Hated going in at 6 p.m. at, 19 years old. All your friends are out partying, having fun, so you want to go have fun too. So I said screw it and started skipping the curfew, and I'd be out all night. Well, they had a probation officer that would come by your house in the middle of the night to check and see if you're home, and he'd wake up the whole house banging on that door. He did not care. He had no respect whatsoever for anybody in that house. Dogs are barking. Kids are screaming. They don't care. 2, 3, 4 a.m. Ended up getting caught 1,000 times doing that. Violated probation 100 times. Well, I'm still on drugs this whole time. They don't know that. Luckily, I was able to get around every drug test. One drug test they tried to give me, I ran out of the office. They put a warrant out for me. I went to jail, and somehow they let me out a week later. Never drug tested me again. Somehow I was able to get away with it. My last month on probation, I was living with this guy that my friend met on Craigslist that was renting a basement out. So me and my buddy lived there for a while. Turned out this guy was a sick bastard. I'm not going to go into detail because YouTube does censor stuff. I don't want to get in trouble, but I caught this man playing with himself in my room on my bed because I started videotaping when I would go to work in my room because I noticed that money was missing, items were missing, and I had no idea that this man had a key to my bedroom the whole time. Same with my friend. He was stealing his medication, all kinds of stuff. So I was mad, and I had 1 month of probation left, and my dumbass ended up stealing a bunch of Star Wars memorabilia from this guy from like when the movie first came out. I think it was the 70s. He had a bunch of stuff. I went and pawned all of it. Well, he immediately called the police. He knew it was me. I told the detectives pretty much come find me, and you best bet they came and found me, locked me up. I was in jail for 7 months on that. Had a month left of probation. So they ended up sending me to something called PDC, which is a probation detention center. It's like a 90-day to 120-day boot camp. It's like a miniature prison pretty much, but you're only doing like 3, 4. Most people there, the most they were getting was like 12 months in PDC, which wasn't that bad. You go out Monday through Thursday, do detail, you clean up trash on the roads, stuff like that, to occupy your time. It still sucked. Got out, did good for a few years. Was bragging to my friends that I went to prison and blah, blah, blah. I thought I was so cool, which was stupid as hell. I don't know why I was bragging about that, because at that point I had never been to prison, but I told people I did, which I think that's where my karma came from later down the road. So I'm good for a few years. Well, I started going into Walmart and Target. Instead of working, I decided to go start stealing stuff. I would steal anything from rifle scopes to range finders, hunting stuff, gun stuff like that. Things that pawn shops would buy. I was going to Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever I could get my hands on. I was going to Target. I had this down pat. I'd hit about 12 targets a day. I was stealing Fitbit Flexes, which are like a training tracking watch that go on your wrist. They were about $150 a piece. I would steal a bunch of those from different stores, in the same day. Never would go in the same store twice in one day. I was good. I ended up taking my autistic stepbrother, which was a horrible mistake anyway. Should have never had him there while I was doing it. Took him into Target, and he moves a lot. He's got ADHD. He's got a lot of mental problems, so he looks suspect on a video camera, on a security camera. He just does. That brought attention to me because they started paying attention to me. Well, next thing I know, the cops show up at my door and arrest me for misdemeanor shoplifting. I was on felony probation for the same stuff I went to PDC for. I was almost done. This was October 2015. I end up getting to the jail. My mom had the bond money for me. She was going to come get me out. It was a misdemeanor, so it wasn't but a couple $100s to bond me out. And I had to bond out before probation found out, because if anybody knows, they put a hold on you. And once you have a probation hold, you can't bond out anymore. You're stuck. You are under the jail's, you can't get out of jail. You're pretty much to their mercy. So, longer story short, I get the book in, ready to bond out. I'm cool. I'm not too upset. I know I'm about to go home. And I go up to the desk to get my bond information, and they tell me it's a felony shoplifting charge. Given I'm already on felony probation for theft. So I'm screwed at this point. My mom doesn't have enough bond money for a felony. It was like $3,000, $4,000, maybe, no, it was like $8,000 to get out without a bondsman. It was still going to be like $2,000 or $3,000 cash with a bondsman. My parents just didn't have that. So I end up going to prison. I go to jail. I'm stuck in jail for, 6 months. And I'm thinking I'm going to get more probation and go home. Well, they come to me and offer me a 10 due 2, and I'm thinking, okay, 10 months due 2, I've already done like 6 months, time served, I'm going home. And my lawyer tells me no, 10 years with 2 years to serve in prison. I was terrified. I went ahead, I had to accept it, I didn't have a choice. They made me a couple other offers for longer time in prison without probation, but I didn't want to do any more time than I had to. So I ended up going to prison. Which was terrifying in itself for any grown man. I don't care how hard you are. It's terrifying going to prison. You don't know what to expect. So I went to prison. I did almost 20 months in prison. My dad actually was one of my best friends. My dad passed away while I was in there. A very violent way of going. He woke up in the middle of the night throwing up blood from a ruptured aorta, and he bled to death in my grandparents' bathroom where he lived. So that was rough. I missed all that. Finally got out of prison. Got sober. I will tell you, though, in the Georgia prison system, there's more drugs in there than there is on the street. They're very easy to get a hold of. Any kind of hard drugs you can think of is in prison. Even alcohol, cigarettes, pot, whatever the case may be, whatever your poison is, it's there. And I got hooked on drugs in there really bad. After being sober in county for 6 or 7 months, I went to prison and I got strung out on drugs again. Got out of jail. Before I went to prison and got caught stealing from Target, I was going to a methadone clinic for 4 or 5 years. It's not as bad as heroin and fentanyl and all that, but I will tell you that the methadone clinic is a trap. Once you're in there, it's almost impossible to get out without dying or getting locked up and being forced to get sober. So, I think I replaced my opiate addiction in prison with other drugs. Not going to go into detail. So when I got out of prison, I still had that addicted mentality. I filled out a bunch of applications for jobs the day I got out. I was good, I was sober, I just wanted to do good. So I filled an application for Subway, ended up getting a call the next day for an interview from this nice manager. So I go in to interview with her, and she is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, man. I don't know. It wasn't just because I was locked up for so long. She was actually just beautiful. Loved her personality. She was bubbly. She had tattoos. She was just a pretty, beautiful girl. Awesome. Would do anything for you. So she gave me a chance. Well, 6 months later down the road, we start catching feelings for each other, and she doesn't like it because she's very professional. She doesn't want people to know that she's, pretty much fallen in love with one of her employees, because she's not that type of person. She wasn't looking for love, wasn't looking for a relationship. You know how it goes. It just kind of happens. When you're meant to be, you're meant to be. So we end up being together. I ended up moving out of my mom and my stepdad's house, moved in with my wife now in Cartersville. We've been together 8.5 years. It'll be 9 years in February we've been together. And it was 2018 New Year's Day. We had to be at work. They were open on New Year's Day. Nothing around us was open. We were the only business open. We were prepping all the food, getting ready. We opened at, I think, 7 a.m. and it was 9 a.m. Had one customer, and the store we were in had a back glass door entrance for customers too as well, which didn't really make any sense to me because anybody can just come through that door. We were sitting there talking, we were arguing about something, and this man walks in, and he was a white guy, older white guy, probably in his 40s, had a hat pulled down, he had Band-Aids all over his face, just, looked very suspect. He came around the corner, and he's real quiet, and I let her get him. Well, I thought he was ordering food. Next thing I know, he's got a Chrome 45 pistol in his hand, tapping it on the chips, saying, "Give me the money. We're getting robbed." Don't know what to do. So I try to take off in the back while he's got a gun on her to go grab my phone off the desk in the back and call 911. Well, when I ran, he tried to follow me in the back door of the where the employee area is, and she got his attention, and he came back up front. I realized I left her up there alone, so I said, screw my phone. I went back up there, put my hands up. Well, he robs us. $220, something like that. He gets away. We call the cops. The cops do a manhunt on this man. He gets away with that. 3 weeks later, he pepper sprayed some elderly lady, a cashier working at Goodwill, pepper sprayed her and took her whole drawer in her register, which had like $60 cash in it. Ends up getting caught in a parking lot, gets out of the car, points a gun at the cops. The cops, of course, shoot him dead. Traumatized. That was horrible. I don't know if anybody's ever been armed robbed, in a business, but it's absolutely terrifying. So, after that, we were very weary about being in that store. So we end up transferring to a different store, like 30 minutes away. We worked there for, 5 years together. We were killing it, man. We were like a well-oiled machine. We were killing it. I ended up being stupid. I was able to get my license back. I was able to buy a car with my wife's help and my stepdad's help. So I have a car, and I had too much freedom for the addicted mentality that I had. I ended up going back to the methadone clinic, and I was hiding this from my wife because she does not put up with that crap. She does not like drugs. She's been through it too. She'd been to prison in Texas, moved out here, started over. She does not put up with that crap. So she ends up finally finding out, because when you're on methadone, there's a lot of signs that, people that have been addicted to stuff look for. They know what to look for. You can usually tell when somebody's on drugs. You know when they're on drugs. She confronts me, it almost ended our relationship. She ended up actually helping me get lower my dose at the place and get off of it. She would go every morning. She would take me every morning to the methadone clinic at like 4 a.m. because we had to be at work at 6. Like, she was just there for me. She hated it, but she was there for me. She almost left me. She got tired of it. So after that, I ended up getting in a little more trouble. I was good for a while. I can't remember what it was. I got a DUI while I was on that methadone. I got pulled over by a state trooper, and he took me to jail for a DUI on my own medication. I don't really know how that works, but anyways, he takes me to jail for a DUI. I was on misdemeanor probation too at the time. I don't remember what it was for. It was for some traffic tickets or something. Well, they sent me to jail for they put a warrant out for me. So I am at Subway, and we were out of meatballs at the time, which this is crazy. So she sends me across the street to Kroger, and instead of using the crosswalk, I had a warrant out for my arrest, keep in mind. Instead of using the crosswalk, I just crossed across the road. Well, the cop pulls me over, runs my name. I have a warrant on methadone. I go to jail. The withdrawals on methadone are so ungodly that it makes you question your existence. I went to jail, and they ended up giving me 30 days in jail, and it takes a good, I'd say, 2.5 weeks to even start feeling somewhat normal again after withdrawing. You're good for 2 or 3 days, but after that third day of having no dose of methadone, you start feeling it. You have no energy to get up. You can't lay still. You got restless leg. You got diarrhea, vomiting profusely. You feel like you got the flu, running a fever. I mean, you just feel like garbage. I ended up getting some coffee. Coffee's the only thing that helps in jail when you're withdrawing from anything. I don't know why. I guess it's a stimulant. It makes you feel a little better. Ended up going through it for, 3 weeks in there. A week later, I was released. Got out. That was in 2018, and I've been sober since. I will say that it's not an easy task getting sober. The best thing I probably had for me was my wife. Like, she was there for me. Like, she hated the addiction part, but she loved me. So, having somebody there to help you through and to have a stronger mindset than you is everything. You have to have some kind of steady help staying sober. Getting sober is one thing. Staying sober is a different. Anybody can get sober, but, having an addict's mentality is... It's really difficult to change that when you've been used to that for so long. I was an opiate addict for 17 years. And here I am, brand new sober, still got that mentality. You're craving it. She helped me through it. And like I said, the only thing that helped me get through it, the best thing I can say, the best tool I had was just having somebody there for me that wanted to help me get sober. Um, you get a job, you work every day, find something else to fill that space instead of drugs. Find something else like a hobby to do, or work yourself to death. Even though that's not a good thing, it still keeps you off of drugs. If your mind's occupied, it's easier to stay away from those things. Plus, I also know if I were to ever go back to those kind of drugs, I would lose my wife, I would lose my dogs, my home, my vehicle, my job, my everything. I would lose everything, and it's just not worth it to me. Some people, maybe it's worth it. It's not worth it to me. So when I tell you guys that, if you're out there trying to get sober and, you've been in trouble before and you just want a better life for yourself, find somebody that actually gives a shit. Find somebody that actually cares about you and doesn't want your money, or, doesn't use you for a place to live or a ride somewhere and back, or, somebody that wants to go party all the time. You need to find somebody that's well-rooted. It is better to meet somebody that has been through it so they understand a little more, because people that have never been through addiction don't understand addiction. They just won't. They don't have time for it. They see it as a choice, not a disease. They see it as, I could just get sober any day. I don't know why they're still on drugs, blah, blah, blah. They don't understand, which I get it. I mean, not everybody's been through that in their life. Some people have it easy and some people have it hard. Long story short, man, the reason I made this video is because if anybody out there's listening that's ever, had addiction problems and been through it in life and just getting in trouble all the time and you're just sick of it, like, you can change. I never thought I would change. I thought I would be on opiates for the rest of my life. I enjoyed it. I saw nothing wrong with it while I was on them. I saw nothing wrong with it. Everybody else is wrong. I'm right. I'm going to take my drugs. I don't care what anybody says. That's not the mentality to have. And sometimes it's really hard to change. Sometimes you just don't see yourself changing. But if I can do it, anybody out there can do it. So here I am. I've been sober since May 23rd, 2018. Here it is, July 24th, 2025. So that's what, 7 years sober, a little over 7 years, I think, give or take. And I'll never go back. I don't crave it anymore. Of course I dib and dabble, smoke a little bit of pot, whatever, that's not drugs to me, in my opinion. Maybe some people think it is, but it's not. Just get a job and save money, man. Get yourself a house. Have responsibilities, because when you have all these responsibilities, you know that you can't just go spend your money on drugs, because you'll lose everything, and it's just not worth it. I may not have much. I don't have a lot of nice stuff. I live in a duplex. I drive a 2012 car. My wife's got a 2015, but they're both paid off. Our rent is affordable. I've got things that I have that I love, like that I worked very hard for. I've had to sell a couple things here and there to pay bills, but for the most part, when you have all these things and they're yours, and you know that it's your responsibility to take care of these things, that you don't have a choice but to do it. You're not going to go blow that money at a strip club, or go to the bar and drink it away, or go smoke it away, or put it up your nose. Like you don't really think like that when you have all your own stuff. When I got in trouble, I hadn't have a pot to piss in. My mom and my stepdad lived in an extended stay, and I slept on their floor at, like, I don't know, 25 years old, like 23 years old. I'm sleeping on my mom's hotel room floor. And, it's not worth it. That kind of life is not worth it. I was stealing every day just to go to the methadone clinic and get my dose. And then after I'm done, I'd go steal some more for the next day. It's an ever-revolving, vicious cycle. So if anybody out there is struggling, if you have anything you want to say or any questions you want to ask, please comment on this video. I'm here for you. I can't help anybody financially, but, mentally, emotionally, vocally, if you have struggles you're going through and you want to know how I did that or how I went through this, then don't get me wrong, I'm still going through it, but I'm sober going through it. If anybody has any questions, just comment on here, guys. I love you guys, and I hope that everybody's doing good. And anybody out there struggling, just know that God loves you. And once you find Jesus, and once He reveals Himself to you for the first time, you'll start seeing things in a different way. I hope everybody has a blessed day, and I know this video is kind of long. Hopefully you guys watched till the end. If not, I understand. Keep it scrolling. For you that did watch it through, thank you. God bless, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.